On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I talk about the MotoGP San Marino Grand Prix, the IndyCar Grand Prix of Portland, and the Formula One Dutch Grand Prix. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome to RevHang. I'm your host, Nathan Nebue, and alongside me today is my fellow automobile operator and co-host, Ben Bagley. How's it going, Ben?
Going pretty good. I tried CrossFit for the first time this morning and I almost died.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it was one of the most exciting parts of my weekend.
Yeah, one of many from what I've heard. Yeah. I can't imagine trying CrossFit. I did, however, take your advice from last episode, and I did go on a run this week. So,
how's that?
I almost died, just like you. So it wasn't that long, but haven't run in several years, and I ran a mile, so I still got it. I guess
the first step is just getting started.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try. Like, I just got a gym membership at the one locally downtown here. So I'll probably hit the bikes because that's a lot easier on your joints when you're first starting out.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway. This is not an exercise podcast. This is a racing podcast. So, let's jump right in. We've got a couple races to talk about today. We have one in MotoGP, one in IndyCar, and a Formula One race, as always. So we'll start with MotoGP and the San Marino Grand Prix. San Marino, just like in F1, the San Marino Grand Prix does not actually take place in San Marino. It's just outside. It was at the Misano circuit in Italy. We'll go over the top 10 in qualifying, so you have some context. In first place was Jack Miller, followed by Francesco Bagnaia, Enea Bastianini, Maverick Vinales, Johan Zarco, Luca Marini, Fabio Quartararo, Aleix Espargaro, Miguel Oliveira, and Franco Morbidelli in 10th. So, when the race started, Miller had a great jump on the start and actually pulled a pretty sizable gap. And of course, in MotoGP, sizable is like half a second to the riders behind. On lap 1, 3 bikes crashed out into turn 1. It was Zarco, Pirro, and Paul Espargaro. That ended all 3 races. And I think Pirro actually needed to go get looked at in the medical tent. I didn't follow up on that, but I'm sure I would have heard if it was serious. But the other 2 were definitely fine, so that's good. On lap 2, the leader at the time, Jack Miller, washed out and fell to the back of the field when he picked his bike back up and got it going again. So did a Zarco from last time. Not what you want. Bezzecchi also crashed out on lap 2, and then that promoted Bagnaia to the front, where he stayed for the rest of the race. But it wasn't like he was all out by himself. He did have 4 other riders right behind him for most of it. With just 4 laps to go, Bagnaia and Bastianini slowly pulled away from the pack and ended up battling each other until the end of the race. On the last lap, Bastianini locked up into a heavy braking zone and almost took Bagnaia out, but luckily it was just a near miss, and they were both able to keep going. And then the rest of the lap, they were going back and forth, and the difference at the line ended up being like 0.03 of a second. So very, very close finish.
That's a way closer result than we're used to seeing in these races.
For sure, yeah. It was the last lap was my heart was going. It was intense, but yeah. So the results of the race, in first place was Francesco Bagnaia, followed by Enea Bastianini and Maverick Vinales rounding out the podium. In 4th and 5th were Luca Marini and Fabio Quartararo. 6 through 10 were Aleix Espargaro, Alex Rins, Brad Binder, Jorge Martin, and Alex Marquez. 11 through 15 was Miguel Oliveira, Andrea Dovizioso, Raul Fernandez, Stefan Bradl, and Taka Nakagami. 16 through 20 was Darren Binder, Marco Bezzecchi, Jack Miller, Remy Gardner, Fabio Di Gianantonio. And in 21st was Kazuki Watanabe, and he was the last finisher. And then we had 4 DNFs this race, and they were Franco Morbidelli, Johan Zarco, Michel Pirot, and Paul Espargaro. All right. So that is our quick little summary of the San Marino Grand Prix. Let's move on to IndyCar. And yes. I believe you went to this race, right, Ben?
I was seated right at the chicane, right near all the Pato Award fans.
Oh, that must have been exciting.
Oh, they were so excited. I almost became a Pato fan just being near them.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm already a Pato fan, so that would have been great for me. I would have been right at home. But yeah, so this was the Grand Prix of Portland in Portland, Oregon. We'll go over the top 10 and do you want to go over the top 10 in qualifying, Ben?
I would love to. I can do this entire section if you want me to.
Go for it.
Oh boy. Okay, yeah. So for qualifying, we had Scott McLaughlin in first place. That spoiler, he would stay for the entirety of the weekend, followed by Will Power, Christian Lundgaard, Alex Palou, and Pato Ward in fifth for qualifying, followed by Felix Rosenqvist, Colton Herta, Joseph Newgarden, Alexander Rossi, and David Malukas starting 10th. Then we had Graham Rahal, Rinus VeeKay, Cal Kirkwood, Callum Ilott, and Romain Grosjean in 15th, followed by Scott Dixon, Jack Carvey, Marcus Ericsson, Simon Pagenaud, and Connor Daly in 20th. And then the last five, we have Helio Castroneves, Takuma Sato, Jimmy Johnson, Devlin DeFrancesco, and Dalton Kellett. It's really weird seeing the race in person, especially at the chicane. It's probably the most you'll see of a lot of the grandstand areas because you can kind of see down the front straight. You have the chicane where they have to slow down, and then you see a little bit of the straight after that and a little bit of the corner if you stand up. But it's theoretically one of the best places for overtaking, but we didn't really see a whole lot of overtakes happen at the chicane this time.
Yeah, it was not the most eventful race. I don't know how. I mean, I'm sure it was just a thrill to be there. I'm super jealous that you got to go.
Yeah. The USF 2000 race was so much more carnage than that. The chicane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The first lap, I'm pretty sure it was like 5 cars out. They all just locked up immediately once they got to the first entry to the chicane.
Oh wow.
Hilarious.
I'll have to check out the replay on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just watched the IndyCar race and wasn't too exciting. I was the beginning was actually pretty impressive because nobody crashed, which really doesn't happen that
everybody
often.
in the grandstands was so disappointed.
Yeah.
The Pato fans, actually. They were pretty happy that he made it through.
Yeah, because I think, did Pato get taken out there last year?
I think so. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember, but yeah, pretty clean racing.
Yeah, but McLaughlin was just so far. It was absurd. It made the track seem so much smaller because you'd just see him just so soon after he went by, and there'd be no one behind him. He would be through the chicane before Will Power was even close.
Yeah.
And
no, he had a huge gap for sure. Like it was like a Sunday drive. He just drove off into the distance. But it is a very short lap. I think it was like
and the top
59 seconds.
It was sub-minute easily. But the top 3 all had pretty good races until pits started happening. And then that's where you saw a lot of the strategy take place because there wasn't really that much overtaking otherwise unless there was like a pit scenario or something like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of
some other extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, definitely lots of strategy involved in the race, but not a lot of cautions, which I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes it a little more predictable, but no one ran on the reds.
We had to. Well, I'm pretty sure a bunch of people ran on reds.
Well, yeah, they did. No, I mean, I was no one ran on reds in practice is what I was trying to say. So they were saving all their reds for the race, and then the reds didn't end up being all that much better than the blacks like they thought.
Yeah, it seemed pretty even no matter what tire people were throwing on the cars.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird weird race in terms of strategy. And then there was only the one caution when Rinus VeeKay just absolutely demolished Jimmy Johnson.
People were so mad. We were all steaming.
Oh, I bet. Like, I know here you were telling me last week you wanted to see Jimmy Johnson and it's going to be fight on site. I wanted to get a good swing in, but I'm sure he got plenty of swings in himself with Mr. VeeKay.
Yeah, no, we actually ended up getting a Jimmy Johnson hat.
Oh, nice.
And we really wanted to find him to get him beside it, but he was doing book signings and the line was just so long.
Oh, wow.
So we
I
got
bet.
elephant ears instead.
There you go. That's a good trade-off right there.
We almost said hi to Helio Castroneves, but I think he heard us talking behind him and he immediately pulled out his phone and started talking on it. So we lost that opportunity.
That's too bad. I saw that post on your Instagram, I think.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
like casually walking.
Yeah.
What's up?
It was kind of funny. And then there's a pit crew suit. A blue and orange pit crew suit. Just kind of like hanging out on a hanger by one of the semi-trucks. And I was so close to just snagging it. But I didn't need to have a warrant out for my arrest.
Yeah. Yeah, IndyCar is so cool because you don't get that kind of access in Formula One. Like, fans, unless you pay an arm and a leg, and even then, like...
Yeah. No, for the price, for less than $200, walking through the paddocks for 3 days and getting some of the best seats at the race was an awesome deal, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, for real, like, how often can you say, hey, I was walking within 10 feet of a 4-time Indy 500 winner? No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So if you can go see an IndyCar race, I'd highly recommend it. It's much more affordable and attainable than an F1 race, especially in the U.S. Well, mostly in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different culture. It's really cool. But in terms of the actual racing, if we want to get back to that, it was, not super exciting. There were lockups every so often. Romain Grosjean just couldn't seem to figure out his brakes going into the chicane.
Yeah, he had a rough race. He was struggling the entire time.
Yeah, Colton Herta was able to lock up and then make a pass going into the chicane, which is crazy to watch.
Yep.
That's one that really stuck in my mind.
Did Pato... I know, because there was on the restart, Pato ended up making contact with Will Power into the chicane.
Maybe?
I don't remember if he locked up, but they definitely at least hit each other because Pato had damage for the rest of the race.
Yeah.
So did you watch the replay? Like, I don't know how much of the race you actually like saw in terms of the stuff that didn't happen at the chicane.
If it didn't happen at the chicane, I did not see it.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's see. Pretty much everything happened at the chicane, to be fair. That's just how Portland goes. One thing, Connor Daly had a DNF. His car just caught on fire when he left his pit box. Yeah, so like the excess fuel on the outside of the car like ignited, and like it was burning him, and like he burned his shoulder, I think.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was kind of unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
Kind of a scary moment. I have been in a car while it was on fire before. It's not a fun experience.
Sure it's not, no.
Yeah, so
yeah.
He was okay though. I mean, they got the fire put out pretty quick, but that ended his race because it burned the clutch up.
Yeah.
But
who was it who went just through the chicane and was carrying one of the NTT IndyCar posters on his nose for like a lap?
Oh, that was Christian Lundgaard.
That was Lundgaard? Yeah.
Yeah.
He was having an awesome race in third until that happened.
Yeah, he was.
So
he had a great race, and then he just got a little too ambitious, and So what you saw is he hit the board, right? He goes around for a whole lap, dives into the pits because he's still carrying the board on his nose.
Yeah.
So he goes into the pits. They take the board off and they service his car, and then he stalls when he tries to exit.
No.
Yeah, so he stalled in the pit box, and so that pretty much ended any chance he had because, he was stationary for another probably 20-25 seconds. So that was his race. He was having such a good race, and he's had such a good season too.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, just one little slip up can do something like that.
Yeah.
But speaking of Christian Lundgaard, we have our overtake of the week happened at the IndyCar race. I gave it to Joseph Newgarden overtaking Christian Lundgaard. He had a fantastic little switch. He was going around. He was showing Lundgaard that he was going to go around the outside into turn 1. So Lundgaard defended the inside, but wasn't super committed to the inside. So right before the braking zone, Newgarden actually cut across behind him and switched to the inside. Braked a little later and was able to make the overtake stick. It was a pretty impressive move. It all happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, too bad Joseph didn't really have that great a race for the rest of the time. I honestly expected to see him move up a bit more, but he was pretty static throughout the entire race.
Yeah, he kind of just stayed in the, kind of middle of the pack the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, kind of a little closer to the front, but front middle of the pack for sure. So we talked about Rinus VeeKay. After that, cut across Jimmy Johnson, sent him into the wall. And
we went looking for Rinus VeeKay after that, but we couldn't find him.
Unfortunate. So
that brought out irons.
Just go jump the guy.
Going for you, punk.
But that accident brought out the only caution of the race, and he was given a drive-through penalty for the offense. Then we talked about on the restart, Power and O'Ward came together. They were both able to continue though. One thing is O'Ward covered off when Scott Dixon was coming to overtake him after he messed up into the chicane. Pato definitely blocked him. Like, Dixon made a move to get around him, and you're not supposed to react to the driver behind you moving to pass, and Pato 100% did, and he was forced to let Dixon pass and got some penalty.
That's why. Okay.
Penalty points. Yeah. So I can imagine seeing, because I think Pato let him by like into the chicane on the next lap.
I was wondering. That was way too easy.
Way too easy. Yeah. So that's why O'Ward had a penalty for blocking. But then, McLaughlin, just in a league of his own, went on to comfortably win the race.
Yeah, I gotta say, the most exciting racing probably happened between Colton Herta, Rossi, Ilott, and that kind of middle pack. Those four were actually really close together for a lot of the race. So that was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And then towards the very back, Dalton Kellett and Jimmy Johnson just scrapping it out.
It's interesting. Like, it's really fascinating when, like, you go to a race and you see how the race unfolds at the track, and I think it's like more entertaining because you see the whole field every lap, whereas I didn't see that whole battle between Herta and Rossi and Newgarden and all them, or the battle between Johnson and Kellett. So, because we were just like basically watching Will Power chase Scott McLaughlin the whole time. Was pretty much the entirety of the camera work.
Yeah, just waiting for Scott McLaughlin to lap them, apparently.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I love going to races because you do get to see, even in the midfield, it can get really exciting, but sometimes on TV they don't show that stuff, which kind of stinks.
Yeah, plus drinking whiskey and Coke in a crowd is so much more fun than drinking whiskey and Coke alone in your house on the couch.
Yeah, I can see that. Both are very enjoyable though. Let's be real. So do you want to go over the results of the race, Ben?
Yes. Guess who won? It was Scott McLaughlin by miles. He could have started from the last track and gotten here in time to win the race.
He drove all the way from St. Louis.
Yeah. After that, we had Will Power. Scott Dixon rounded out the podium. After that, we had Pato O'Ward. Sorry, Pato fans, no podium yesterday. Followed by Graham Rahal, who actually had a pretty good race too.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually able to move up pretty well. Followed by Colton Herta, Alexander Rossi, Joseph Newgarden, Callum Ilott, and then Felix Rosenqvist in 10th place. In 11th, we have Ericsson, and then Palou, Kirkwood, Malukas, and Jack Harvey in 15th. And then for the bottom, we have Dave Francesco, Castroneves, Sato, Grosjean, VK in 20th, Lundgaard, Kellett, and Pagano rounding out the finishers in 23rd. Then we had Jimmy Johnson, who was tragically taken out by Rinus VK into the chicane, and Connor Daly, who apparently caught fire.
Yep. Yeah. One thing to note is we are going into our last IndyCar race of the season next week at Laguna Seca, which is such a fantastic track.
So much fun.
I love watching races there. But so the championship is winding down, and Pato O'Ward had to win that race, or he would have been out of championship contention, and unfortunately, he did not win the race. So
Yes.
he's no longer in the championship picture. It is very much looking like it's going to be either Will Power or I think Scott Dixon actually moved up into second in the championship. Let me look real quick. Should have had this pulled up, but it's all right.
I think
Oh,
we have
that's
a
right.
tie
They
for
haven't
second
updated
place
it
right
yet.
now.
It might be. I keep checking this website, but they are not updating their IndyCar standings. So I think Scott Dixon is in second, or at least very close to second. So it's looking like it's going to be a shootout in the last race between Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, and Scott Dixon. I think Marcus Ericsson is technically still in it, and I think McLaughlin is too. But they are very, very far back, and basically they have to win and have all the other contenders DNF to win the championship. And essentially,
Will Power would have to make a very uncharacteristic mistake at Laguna Seca to lose the championship right now, I think.
basically, yeah. I mean, he's got a comfortable enough lead to where if he finishes top 5, he probably has a good shot at winning it all.
Yeah, I think he's something like 30 points ahead.
Yeah,
After this race.
something like that.
Yeah, so.
But we'll talk about that more next week because the championship will be over by then.
Yes.
Cool. So before we get into Formula One, we do have our wonderful Zoomer rumor segment. Please, guys, please hit us up on Twitter. Tell us something that's not Zoomer rumors, and it'll probably get implemented. Honestly, we hate the name probably more than you do at this point. So, I mean, we're just gonna keep it as it is until someone changes it, though. So please hit us up at RevHang Media or use hashtag RevHang Podcast and get us to change the name. We're begging you.
Please, have a Steam account. Message me there.
Yeah, anywhere. Instagram, anything. So we have some actual rumors this time. First one being Gasly to Alpine. Basically what we're hearing is that AlphaTauri will release Gasly to Alpine as long as Colton Herta is granted a super license by the FIA, which essentially means, and we're supposedly all through the grapevine and unofficial sources, we're supposed to hear if Colton Herta is granted a super license by Sunday
After Monza,
at Monza.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he gets the super license, Gasly to Alpine, Herta to AlphaTauri, which is just wild to me.
Yeah.
And then what does that leave? That leaves an open spot at
Chip Ganassi Racing.
I think the only open spot left currently would be Williams. Well, even then it's not really. So Williams and Haas have have the only open spots left. So I mean, the door's starting to close for people like Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
I mean, Haas has a lot of options, honestly, in terms of where they could go. They could grab Ricciardo, they could stick with Schumacher, and then I think actually Antonio Giovinazzi has free practice 1 test with him in Monza this week.
Interesting.
So he's
Yeah,
evidently on their radar.
it is important to note that Ferrari no longer has an option over the Haas second seat.
Right.
I think, isn't that right? Yeah.
I think
So
so.
Giovinazzi is not as shoe in as he maybe once was. I think with that Ferrari connection.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, I don't know where the connection between Ferrari and Haas lies at the moment. I know Schumacher did just cut off and break his ties with Ferrari this
Yeah.
week. So I don't know if that says anything, if he's like leaving Haas or something, and he knows it, or I don't know. But um, yeah, so Schumacher is no
Schumacher.
longer Ferrari affiliated.
Maybe it's Herta to AlphaTauri, Schumacher to Colton Herta's seat in the yellow and black car.
Schumacher to
Oh man.
IndyCar. There you go.
Yes.
That'd be
Finally.
wild. Um, that'd be insane.
It'd
Uh,
be so much fun.
that'd be awesome though. The other team that has an open spot at the moment is Williams. They've got quite a few options too. They have also Daniel Ricciardo as an option, and then Nicholas Latifi, which I mean they told him, or at least news sources are reporting that they told him that if he puts up consistent drives for the
Well,
second half of the season, he'll have a shot at the seat, but I just don't see that happening.
hold on. Let's qualify that. Latifi has been one of the most consistent drivers this season.
You're not
However,
wrong.
that doesn't mean he's been good.
Yes. Um, I think they're probably wanting him to be, I'd say, if he can be to consistently top like 13 or 14, that's probably where they want him. But even still, like, how do you look at Nicholas Latifi and Daniel Ricciardo and choose Latifi? Like, I understand Ricciardo's been struggling, but I don't think that's entirely to do with him as much as it is the McLaren and the driving style that requires. I think Ricardo is still a very incredibly talented driver. It just hasn't worked out with McLaren for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I wonder if it's still like a budget thing that they haven't announced Latifi as being out yet. Because he
it,
is a pay driver, and I wonder how much funding they actually get from him being on the team.
yeah, but do you think with Williams being so closely affiliated with Mercedes, like if money was a problem, I feel like Mercedes would shell out the money to put De Vries in the car.
It's entirely
Uh,
possible, yeah.
but I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. And then another driver that's kind of a possibility for Williams is Logan Sargent in F2. Um, he's the kind of the main Williams Academy driver in F2 right now. But past that, I don't see it being anyone else. But every time I've said that this season, we've had some silly season announcement. So who knows? Maybe
Probably end up being yeah,
Jamie
it'll
Chadwick
be
in the car.
nobody.
Yeah, Williams runs with one car next year. That's what it is.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the rumors we've got floating around right now. As of this week in the Formula One world. But let's move on to the Formula One Dutch Grand Prix. This took place in Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Max Verstappen's home race, notably. Very orange there. Lots of orange people in the crowd. Well, I guess people wearing orange clothing is what I kind of meant by that.
Close enough.
It's been a long day. It's okay. But so, the qualifying order, top 10, was Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Perez in 5th, followed by Russell, Norris, Schumacher, Tsunoda, and Stroll, rounding off the top 10. Really good qualifying from Mick Schumacher again. He's had a string of pretty good qualifying performances. And then Lance Stroll also has been doing better in qualifying and has outqualified Vettel for the last few races, I think. So good job to those two. And then, also Yuki Tsunoda qualified in 9th in the AlphaTauri, which is not that competitive this year.
Yes, and Albon was actually showing a pretty strong qualifying until he got a flare chucked in front of him.
Yeah. Somebody decided it was a good idea to throw a flare onto the track during qualifying.
Grenade out.
Yeah, they got all the fans around them started pouring beer on them and basically tackling them. It like from what I heard, it was essentially like the dude regretted it instantly. um, but yeah, then security picked him up and threw him out, and I assume he was probably banned for I guess life probably. I
Banned
don't
from the
know.
Netherlands. You can never
Yeah,
make that
banned from
again.
the. I don't know what you have to do to get banned from the Netherlands. That seems like the most accepting country like in the world. But yeah, don't throw flares on the track, people. Just public service announcement there. Not a good thing to do. It's very dangerous. It's just
You know, has
stupid,
to go live in
honestly.
Bosnia.
I mean, if you want to go to Bosnia, I
Sure, it's a
mean, I'm
great
sure it's a
place.
beautiful place.
Having never been there.
But you don't want to get forced out of it because, or forced out of the Netherlands because you decided to throw a flare onto a racetrack. That's kind of a story you don't want to retell.
Yes.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyways,
It's super late at night for us, by the way, for everybody listening, or at least for me. So we're kind of
yeah,
tangenting a lot.
I've still got so much energy.
Well, yeah, but I guess you work at night normally, so
Yeah, I
uh,
practically work graveyard at this point.
yeah. But anyway, onto the race. Hamilton and Sainz made contact into turn one. It was just really light contact, and both drivers were able to continue. Sainz did have a little bit of floor damage, though. On lap two, Kevin Magnussen took a trip through the gravel trap and hit the wall. But again, it was just a light hit, and his car was also able to continue, and I don't think he even had any
Impressive
damage.
save.
Yeah, I don't know how he saved that car. That was incredible. Um, so Sainz and Perez boxed on lap 15. Sainz had a horrific pit stop because the Ferrari pit crew decided that they only wanted to bring 3 wheels out to the pit box.
Off savings hitting hard.
Right. Uh, so I think Sainz was a little upset, so he told him he wanted all 4, and so they had to run back into the garage and grab the other tire, and all that good Ferrari stuff that happens.
All you
Um,
hear over the radio is signs just, oh my god.
yeah. Uh, so they forgot the rear left wheel, and so when the mechanic ran back into the garage to grab the wheel, he like chucked the wheel gun to the side, basically into the middle of the pit lane. Uh, and so Perez, who was boxing behind Sainz, literally had nowhere to go when he left his pit box. So he ran over the wheel gun, and luckily was like his car was undamaged, but it was like, what are Ferrari doing? I'm sure they're
You can
probably gonna
probably
get a
use that
fine for that.
snap-on warranty.
Yeah, gotta make sure you get that warranty. Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
Milwaukee's
strong
always
biz. We're
been the
gonna run over
indestructible
this
one for
wheel
me.
gun with a Formula One car.
Yeah, I put that on an infomercial. Um, but yeah, so Perez ended up running over the wheel gun, but his car was undamaged, luckily. I don't know if anything ever came of that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari got fined by the FIA for something like that. Because that's just careless and dangerous. Uh, but anyway, moving on. Hamilton and Perez battled each other on lap 36, and Hamilton finally got past on lap 37 into turn one. Sebastian Vettel came out of the pits a lap down and almost caused Hamilton to lose a position again to Perez. That whole thing was so weird. Vettel was just kind
So
of sitting there
entertaining.
in their way.
Vettel's
um,
like, you know what? I'm gonna battle Lewis Hamilton right now.
yeah, just thinking about the good old days. Um, but he did actually get a penalty point for ignoring blue flags. Uh, not the best moment, but I mean, I don't think just coming out of the pits, like I can imagine there's so much going on in your mind that it's really hard to be aware of where you are on the track and who you're racing and if the people behind you are racing you or if they're lapping you. It's probably pretty tough.
Yeah. Easy to
Um,
forget you're driving a tractor.
yeah. On lap 44, Yuki Tsunoda stopped on the side of the track and said there was something wrong with one of the wheels. He thought one of the wheels was not secured on to the car properly. So he stopped the car, undid his seatbelt, but then put his seatbelt back on and continued as the team told him that the car was fine. He boxed again that lap for more tires and to have his seatbelt put back on properly and tightened. And then he left the pit lane and then stopped on the side of the track again, which caused a VSC. I guess there was something really wrong with his car, and AlphaTauri just didn't catch it the first time around, but I don't know. It wasn't really stated what was completely wrong with the car.
Excellent conspiracy theory fodder.
Oh yeah, Twitter blew up. Twitter absolutely blew up. Because Verstappen was able to box under the virtual safety car, which helped his race tremendously. It ended up saving him probably about 10 seconds of race time. And so, of course, Twitter and the Red Bull haters are saying that Red Bull called down to AlphaTauri and said, hey, let's have him stop on the side of the track and cause a safety car so Max can have a free pit stop. There's no way. Yeah. Not when Red Bull is that far clear in the championship. Max is that far clear in the championship. And they were already on track for, at the very least, a podium. There's literally no possibility that happened, because if that did happen, Red Bull and AlphaTauri would be instantly disqualified from the championship, and that would turn into the largest PR nightmare probably in Formula One history.
Yeah.
So I guess anything's possible, but the odds of that happening are so staggeringly low.
Yeah, conspiracy theories are fun, but they remain theories.
Yep. So on lap 55, Bottas stopped on the side of the track into turn 1, which caused a full safety car. So all of the cars were going through the pit lane because the incident and all the tractors and stuff were actually in the middle of the track into turn 1. So they just had the safety car and all the drivers drive through the pit lane to go around it. So that was kind of an interesting thing, because it means that the pit stops were even shorter and even more free than they usually would have been. But I mean, there was a lot of weird strategy stuff that happened during that
I'm sure that just messed up so many pit strategies.
Yeah, and Mercedes was kind of the big notable one, the one that got the most attention at least. Mercedes kept Hamilton out on the track on the old medium tires. For context first, Max Verstappen's in third place at this point, behind Lewis Hamilton in first and George Russell in second. So Mercedes didn't pit Hamilton, but decided to pit George Russell for soft tires. Verstappen also pit for tires, but I think was able to jump Russell in the pits or something like that. And so Verstappen was able to get up into second place with no gap between him and Hamilton in front of him, with Max on fresh soft tires and Lewis on used mediums. A lot of people had flashbacks to Abu Dhabi. But yeah, so when the race ended up restarting, on the safety car restart, Max got the perfect jump. I have never seen a driver time something better. They came out of the last corner, and Max was on Hamilton's rear end, and he ended up pulling out to the side and basically going wheel to wheel with Hamilton. And you're not allowed to pass a car on a safety car restart until you reach the finish line. Max was his front wing was at Lewis's front wheels at the finish line, and then he just breezed by him on the rest of the straight.
Classic.
It was so perfect. It was very impressive. So Verstappen was able to sail past Lewis before they even did any turning. Mercedes, to be fair, is not the fastest car on the straight line this year, and the Red Bull very much is. So I don't think there was anything Lewis could do. That's why he was so upset at Mercedes for pitting Russell and not pitting him. Basically, Mercedes had a couple of options. They could have either not pitted either car or pitted both cars, and those both seemed a little better than pitting just Russell.
Yeah, the hard part would have been when they're that close together. I think a double stack would have been a bit more hazardous than if they were a bit more spaced apart.
Yeah, it would have been tough.
Even
That's
by a
for
couple
sure.
seconds. So I can see that causing some problems, or at least making Russell's pit stop much slower.
Yeah, it was tough. It was definitely a hard situation, but I mean, I don't know. I think Verstappen would have won anyway, just based on how much faster he was than everybody else. So I think all that, even if Mercedes nailed it, I think it would have just delayed the inevitable.
Max Verstappen is always going to win this race.
Yeah. But you can tell that Lewis is hungry and really wants to win a race this season. He's now, I think, either as of this week or last week, he's on his longest stint without a race win in his career.
It'd just be really great to see these new young drivers get their first wins during the season, like Hamilton.
Yeah.
Just... but yeah, it would be cool to see him get back on the podium at least once this season.
Yeah. Yeah, I want him to win again because he's got this record going. He's won a race in every single season he's competed in. So it would kind of be a shame if this season ended up being like the black mark on his record.
Yeah.
Because I don't doubt that Mercedes is going to be in title contention next year. I think they're going to sort their stuff out and be right up there at the front again. But we'll see. But anyway, on lap 64, George Russell passed Lewis Hamilton, almost running into the back of him in the process. Straight up Baku 2017 Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo style, or 2018, sorry. It was so close. Like, we're talking millimeters. it was really close. And then on lap 66, Leclerc passed Hamilton as Hamilton's tires started to degrade. So the race ended up finishing Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc on the podium. Verstappen had the fastest lap and also won the driver of the day. So yeah, very much a Max Verstappen race, which, I mean, it was in the Netherlands, so it's to be expected. And also, he's just got the fastest car, so...
Yeah.
But he still performed and had another perfect weekend. I mean, even if you have the best car, you still got to perform at a very high level to win a race.
Yeah, but even during qualifying, like, we saw it last weekend, and this weekend was no different, where he would go out and do maybe a few laps, set the fastest time, and then go back into the pits for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he knows that he's won the championship, I think, and so he's just super relaxed, and I think that's just making him even faster.
Yeah.
But as far as the results for this race go, in first place was Max Verstappen, followed by Russell and Leclerc on the podium. Fourth and fifth were Hamilton and Perez. 6 through 10 was Alonso, Norris, Sainz, Ocon, Stroll. And then 11 through 15 was Gasly, Albon, Schumacher, Vettel, and Magnussen. And then rounding off the finishers were Zhou, Ricciardo, and Latifi. And then we had 2 DNFs, and that was Bottas and Tsunoda, both with mechanical problems. So, yeah, I think what in terms of what we can take away from this race, I think Mercedes is looking just as, if not faster than Ferrari at this point. It could be track dependent, track specific. Honestly, they'll probably be slower next week because Monza's all about top speed, and Mercedes is not the fastest in the straight line, like I said before. But in terms of in the corners and on this tight track like Zandvoort, Mercedes did look to have the edge over Ferrari. But they did also make a little bit of a strategy mistake, which doesn't really happen too often. Luckily, this one wasn't huge.
Yeah.
But You don't really see them make errors like that in terms of their strategy calls. But I mean, there was no stopping Max. He had a perfect weekend. He won in qualifying, then won the race, and didn't really seem like he had much problem doing it. For Alfa Romeo, they're still having mechanical problems. That's just kind of been the story of their season. And then Ferrari just continues to drop the ball. This time it was Carlos Sainz with the bad luck, the slow pit stop, and then the wheel gun. And then on his second pit stop, too, I forgot to say, he was released into the path of Fernando Alonso. So he got an unsafe release and a 5-second penalty, which dropped him from, I think, what would have been 5th? I think he was in 5th, yeah.
Ish, yeah.
Dropped him from 5th-ish to 8th at the end.
Barely above Ocon.
Yeah. It was close. Like, he almost didn't score points. Like, I thought he wasn't going to score points because most of the cars behind him were within 5 seconds, but I think he was just barely able to pull out in front of Ocon and Stroll in terms of that 5-second gap by the end. But it was close. He almost did not score points, and that would have been tragic.
Could you imagine if Stroll scored points this weekend and Sainz didn't?
Yeah, that would have been wild. But I did predict last week that Carlos Sainz would end up in a gravel trap, and that did not happen. So I will eat my words graciously. So championship standings, as of right now, Max Verstappen has a 109-point lead to Leclerc and Perez, who are now tied at 201 points.
But Leclerc still has a chance, right?
Mathematically, yes. And then also last week, I did say that Red Bull has won the pit stop championship. I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but that was incorrect. They actually haven't. I was basing that on them having one car. So they haven't quite won the pit stop championship yet, but they're getting there. But before we get into that, championship, I mean, we just kind of talked about it. Leclerc took second place back from Perez because Leclerc has more wins, even though they're tied. And then Mercedes is now only 30 points behind Ferrari, with George Russell in 4th and Lewis in 6th, with Carlos Sainz in the middle. Yeah, it's going to start heating up between Mercedes and Ferrari here pretty quickly, I think. But we'll see. So now pit stop championship. Pierre Gasly had the shortest time from pit entry to pit exit. I don't think he had the fastest pit stop in terms of in the pit box time, though. I think that was Perez.
That was Red Bull for Perez.
Because Perez, I think they hit the first 2.0 I've seen this season.
Yeah, I think they actually got the fastest pit stop of the season recorded.
I think so. It was 2 seconds dead. I don't know why his pit entry to pit exit time was different. That's how we've been measuring this the whole season, so I can't really change how we measure it now, for fairness, but yeah, so Red Bull definitely had a lightning fast pit stop this week, but in terms of pit entry to pit exit, Pierre Gasly had the fastest time, so he gets the top spot this week, and then followed by Sebastian Vettel in second place, and Sergio Perez very close behind in third. So AlphaTauri with a really good week, because Tsunoda was in 4th. So yeah, AlphaTauri had a fantastic week for pit stops.
Yeah, they didn't have a fantastic week for racing.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sebastian Vettel, yeah, Aston Martin had a good one too, because Lance was in, was that 6th, something like that, 7th, yeah.
Yeah, 7th. I can count.
I can't. But that's why you're here, Ben. So, championship standings. Perez still very much in front, with Verstappen very much in second place. Pierre Gasly moves up to 3rd place, passing Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin. They came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Ferraris are starting to drop back in the pack a little bit. In the constructors, it's Red Bull ahead by 220 points, followed by AlphaTauri in second place, and they actually have a pretty nice little lead to Ferrari in third. You've got, what is that, 33 points? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So AlphaTauri's killing it this year. Both Red Bull teams, I guess, are the pit stop kings. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the pit stop championship. Let's move on to my favorite part of the episode, our terrible predictions. Dutch Grand Prix. Top 5 were
first.
Okay. Top 5 were Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Perez. What did you say, Ben?
I did get Verstappen in first, incredibly. Perez did score points. Russell also did score points. Leclerc was on podium. Alonso got 6th, right? Yes.
Yes.
And then Sainz got 8th, but I have him as my dark horse. So that is unfortunate for me.
Yeah.
You did slightly better. You did way better, actually.
Yeah, I actually got the whole top 5 correct. They were just out of order.
Top 6.
Oh yeah, top
you have
6.
Alonso for dark horse.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that then. No, I'm not. But Verstappen, I think we should do, if we get top 5 all correct and then dark horse is 6th, I think we'll count that. But yeah, Alonso didn't quite make top 5. So I also had Verstappen winning, so I got that correct. And then I had Leclerc, followed by Perez, Russell, and Hamilton. So yeah, I did get all the drivers in the top 5 correct. I just got the order a little bit mixed up. The fastest lap of this race went to Max Verstappen. What did you say?
Like a fool, I said Perez.
Well, to be fair, last week you only said Perez because I said Verstappen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm glad you remember.
Said, yeah, we both wanted to say Verstappen, but you said Perez for the sake of being different. So I'll give that one to you in spirit.
Okay.
Driver of the day was also Max Verstappen. What did you say?
I said Russell. And in my defense, hold on, he did do quite well this race.
He did. He had a very, very good race. Very impressive to watch.
He started, 6th? 5th?
I think he started 6th. Something like that. Came second, passing Leclerc, Hamilton, and Perez, I think, on track.
Yes.
Which, I mean, those are no slouches, obviously. So, yeah, I said Fernando Alonso, who also had a good race. But I almost think he's so consistently having good races that it's just kind of flying unnoticed now.
Yeah, although he did get knocked out in Q2. So that the fact that he got up to 6th from Q2 start, pretty good.
Yeah, very good. All right, so moving on to our predictions for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza next week. Let's see. I think you did your predictions first last week, or we kind of went back and forth, but I'll go first. I'm gonna say, I mean, Red Bull.
Just say Verstappen.
It's Verstappen, Perez, 1-2. I didn't want to say it, but that's what I think is going to happen. Verstappen, Perez, followed by Leclerc and Hamilton, and then Sainz is 5th with Russell. No, I can't do that because Russell hasn't finished out the top 5. He's got to keep his streak going. So we'll go Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Russell, and then Sainz with Hamilton as my dark horse.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be Verstappen, Perez 1-2. But I'm gonna say, man, I really want to say Ferrari gets a podium, but I've just lost. So I'll say Sainz 3rd.
Okay.
4th, I'll put Hamilton. 5th, Leclerc, and my dark horse will be, I put Alonso again as my dark horse.
Okay, sounds good. Fastest lap, I'm gonna say Verstappen. No pressure to not say Verstappen, by the way.
I'm gonna say yeah. I want to win.
Yeah.
I want to do well. I want to
Okay.
be right.
Let's be right one week.
It's so
Uh,
easy.
Driver of the day. This one could go a lot of ways, actually.
It's
I'm gonna
Italy.
give it.
It's
I'm
Monza.
gonna. I'm gonna say Lando Norris. I'm
What?
gonna throw that out there because Lando loves Monza, and he is the only performing McLaren right now.
uh,
That'll be my one that I
I'm
throw out there.
gonna throw out Mick Schumacher.
Okay. All right. Both with kind of a stretch, but we'll see.
One a bit
Um.
more of a stretch than the other, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Uh. We'll see. But that kind of sums up this episode. Do you have any words of wisdom for the people before get to the outro here, Ben?
Words of wisdom. Yeah, make sure you're eating enough. I think a lot of people get so focused on not eating too much, but if you're in a bulk, or you're trying to put on weight for some reason, or you're just trying to be active, make sure you're eating enough to keep those calories up and make sure you're being healthy about the amount of activity you're getting.
Nice. Awesome. Well, with all of that being said, thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on. It really helps us out. If you'd like to follow our thoughts and opinions on the motorsport world, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at RevHang Media. If you have any thoughts or questions about racing or even about us, post a tweet at #RevHangPodcast. We may feature your question on the next show. You can also post a tweet at #RevHangPodcast or just DM me on Twitter with your suggestion for Zoomer rumors. Please, again, we don't like it. But that's what it's going to stay for now. We would just love to interact with you guys, so feel free to reach out. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and or myself at 2n_squared. While you're at it, go check out our website, RevHang.com, where you can find a calendar of upcoming races, updated standings for the racing series we talk about, along with our often severely incorrect predictions for the F1 season. We'll return in a week to talk about the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, but until then, I have been Nathan.
And I've been Ben.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
See y'all later.